In a world where our friends call us not us united and our enemies call us midnight rain, two dudes must learn to podcast as the Fremen do in order to survive the desert planet of endless content. We don't care how many enemies we have. They'll never be prepared for us. Not us united. Well, as Gandalf said, fly, you fools.
That's what he said.
In Mickey 7.
Yeah. I remember when Gandalf the Wise said in Star Trek Beyond, "May the Force be with you, Mickey 7.
I'm not even gonna.
You started this.
Nope, you start this episode now if you're gonna take it like that. Like just
This
you.
is how you want. This is how you wanted to
As
start.
Gandalf said, and okay.
So this is a way off topic, but I don't know if I said this last week during our Lord of the Rings podcast, but my wife accidentally called Gandalf Dumbledore, and now I've been accidentally calling Gandalf Dumbledore, and I kind of hate myself a little bit.
Oh no! Now you have to get a Harry Potter tattoo.
Yeah, now I have to cover up my other
Just a
tattoo.
little scar on your forehead, or maybe the Death Eater's mark.
No, or
the Dark Mark. Yeah,
I was close to doing. I do want
that tattoo is pretty.
It's pretty. It's
cool.
It goes
looking.
hardcore.
Like honestly, if it wasn't like a gang full of murderers, kind of cool. Kind of cool.
We enjoy
looking.
torturing people.
You know, I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
but it's cool.
Like the drip looks good,
Grip don't stop.
and their masks and stuff. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, you know what else is cool? Having friends on this podcast.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
His
we have
segues are
here's a segue. Segue time. We're joined yet again by a guest and friend, Brandon. Say hello to the people.
Hi, people.
There he
you
is.
go. There he is.
This week we will be reviewing a book review. This is, I think, the first book review we've done on the podcast.
We did something else. I
Okay.
feel like, didn't we?
No.
I don't know. We've been doing this podcast for almost 2 years
Oh,
now,
yeah,
so it's
it
just
is.
hard to remember.
I just last time we said this was the first of something. You said it was the first TV show we ever reviewed,
yeah,
and that was a lie.
It's like the third or something. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've talked books, but maybe this is the first.
The first dedicated episode to a
Yeah.
book.
Maybe.
Anyways, I'm going to throw it out there, and I'm probably wrong, but we're going to be
80%.
talking about Mickey 7.
Yes. Do we want to discuss the origin of like why?
Yes.
Do you want me to do
This
that?
was you. This was all
Okay.
your idea. So if it's bad, then it's your fault.
Oh, perfect. So this was like fall of last year.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
like
it
late
sounds about
fall.
right.
There was like an announcement that there was this movie being made by legendary director Bong Joon-ho,
Mm-hmm.
who did like Parasite.
Yep.
And what's the one with
Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer, but also there's like a pig one or an elephant.
Oh, Oakjaw.
Oakjaw, yeah. That's like, so everything he's done, everyone's like bowing, like he's the man.
Mhm.
Anyway, starring Rob Pattinson. So that combination was just like, okay,
Intriguing.
what is this movie? And they're like, well, it's based off this sci-fi novel, Mickey 7. The movie's going to be called Mickey 17. We're like, okay, well, Not Us United is a movie podcast, so maybe we should read this book for research
Yes.
and then get excited for this movie that comes out in 2024.
Yes.
There's already a teaser. It's already been filmed.
Oh, okay.
So, like, it's done.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Coming out in March of
Oh,
next
that's
year.
quick.
So, 2024. So, we were just, like, excited. Thought, who better to ask than the audiobook
Legend.
legend,
Mm-hmm.
Brandon. So, he's given me so many book recommendations. I feel like he's given you some, too.
Yeah, yes.
So, we're all in the know. So, I was like, you know what? This time, I'm going to give a recommendation. And boy, did I...
Give a recommendation.
give a recommendation.
Yes, you did.
I definitely gave a recommendation to a friend.
So we thought we would review this book, but then mostly talk about what we're excited for, of like, what could a movie do to either elevate or do differently with the source material.
Mhm.
Which sometimes, you know, people are like, book's always better than the movie. I don't know. After reading this book, I could really see a movie bringing some
Yeah.
really cool things to
Yeah,
life
for sure.
from this concept. So first we'll talk book. It'll obviously be spoiler heavy because you can't talk about a book that much without spoilers. And so
I think we can do a quick spoiler-free synopsis, though,
Yes.
of the book.
yes.
Maybe, Brandon, you want to give us a spoiler-free synopsis?
Ooh, wow.
Oh,
Can do my best.
I'll throw it to you on the spot.
It's just the basic premise.
Yeah. It's a book. It's got a cover.
It's got a book. It's got pages
Yeah.
and words.
Sick.
Yeah. Sci-fi novel set far in the future. Humans are spreading into tons of different planets across the galaxy. And this colony of humans is trying to settle onto a planet. And our main character is the colony's expendable, which means that basically his DNA and his physical makeup and his mind have all been stored and get backed up regularly so that if he dies, they can just make a new one, clone him, throw his whole personality and all of his memories into a new body, and bam, there's the next
new
one.
guy.
Yeah. So Mickey 7, this is the 7th iteration of our main character.
Yeah.
Don't think that's too much of a spoiler.
Don't think so. It's in the title, so fair enough.
And it's about his journey in being the expendable on an exploration.
Yeah. My second question is, what does your schedule look like for the next 50 Wednesdays? Because I want you to do every synopsis. That was good. That was great.
We could
Thank
just
you.
like freelance, like
Yeah.
get him just to record snippets
Yeah.
of like, give us a synopsis of Wakanda Forever, and he's
Yeah.
like, got it.
Oh, I got you.
There's this mysterious.
You heard
Be
of
a
Black
little
Panther,
longer.
but the second one. Well, cool. I think when I was pitched the book to read,
Yes.
you said clones and sci-fi, and I'm like, dude, I'm in. It sounds awesome.
Have you
It
seen
sounds
Star
really
Wars?
interesting. Yeah, this person that like, his body, and his he could just be replicated in a certain way. And so like I just think that basis has a great idea already built into it. And so I don't think it's a spoiler to talk about the first chapter that happens.
No.
Okay, so like there's one point where he like is on this mission and he's like kind of left for dead, but then he comes back to the base and they assume that he died. And so they printed off another Mickey 8. And so the whole kind of premise is like them trying to live with each other. And that I thought was like, whoa, once I heard about that, I'm in. Like that's such a cool idea. Now where it kind of took it, I don't know if it landed super well for me, but overall I think the idea is really cool and I would recommend the book overall to people.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's I feel like the goal was the sales pitch, and they pitched it very well.
Yes.
So like, it's just sad because I feel like my imagination took that idea and was like, oh man, I cannot wait to see where this goes. And this isn't spoiling it. I just feel like I didn't think I had that high of expectations, but going into it, it appeared that like the way it was written, I kind of was like, oh, okay, I'm surprised that they just only did that or did this and chose to do this instead of that. So as a concept, super dope, a world that like I'm very interested in learning more about, that sort of thing. But I think I kind of got like, it almost felt a little mislabeled when sent to me like, hey guys. But all that said, I agree with you in the fact that I love the idea so much that a movie, which rarely shot for shot adapts any book correctly, there's like very few that I can think of where I was like, oh, that's literally like shot for shot from the book. So I'm actually very excited about a loosely adapted cinema experience based in this story. So that's what I'll say about spoiler free.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like few chapters into the book, I was in a similar spot where I thought, wow, this could go so many different directions. There's so much they could do with this. And so by the end of the book, I'll just say it did not go where I thought it was going to go. In both like the number of things it did or the direction. And so, yeah, I'm excited for a movie with a creative adaptation of it. for a lot of movies that are made based off books, I want it to be very, very close.
Right.
I don't want them to miss out on the things the book did really, really well. In this case, I'm totally open-handed, so very different from my normal attitude. I'm like, take the premise and the basic, plot, but then do whatever you want with it from there, because I think there's still a lot of cool things the movie could do.
Yeah. Just thinking about it as from the director's kind of Bong Joon-ho, just like he has that Parasite kind of like eeriness to it, but also like this Snowpiercer, here's some sci-fi element. That also has some kind of like eeriness to it as well, if you guys have seen that. And I think that combination is somehow perfect for a Mickey 7, where it is this sci-fi, but also like the psychology of, well, what happens when two identical people start living different lives, and what is that, and what is like the person behind that. And Robert Pattinson, I think, will be great in that role. And so I think there is huge potential for this area and for the movie, where visually you can kind of see this aspect, and maybe even like cut out some of the pieces that don't work in the book. Sometimes there's stuff that doesn't need to be fleshed out, and you just like have a streamlined movie, and that kind of paints a clearer picture. So yeah, I think a movie of this would be pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, I'm super excited for it. I almost wonder too, like, by naming it Mickey 17,
right,
if they're purposely saying like, hey, like adding that much more and then they could they could totally just like kill them super fast or whatever and just get us caught up to like, hey, it's just been a crazy couple months and now Mickey 17. But I do wonder if that's trying to take it to almost like a more psychological level of like,
right, just
I've been dying a lot. Like, this is a lot of deaths for one person to like remember, especially if he's backed up correctly, and like remembering everything, so I do wonder if it could take like a darker, like, what if he's almost like unhinged by death not meaning anything, but I think I'm just excited to see where they could take it.
Let's dive in quickly to how you guys kind of read or listened to the book. Like, what was the process that looked like? Because I read it, I got it from the library, and I read it very quickly. I was like week and a half or so, and I just burned through it. And I kind of forgot a lot that happened, mostly, because I read it like a few months ago. But I remember the general ideas, but I just wanted to like see how you guys read, or like what was your process with the book.
You want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I did the audiobook on this one, and I think I ingested this whole book pretty much in 3 days.
Nice.
Driving to and from Kansas City, 10-hour round trip approximately, and so I think I listened to this on 2 of those trips, and then maybe one other, like very recently before this podcast. So big chunks of the book at a time. I think I remember most of it pretty well, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty fresh too. By recently with Brandon, I also finished this right before the podcast.
Nice.
So very hot off the heels of, but I did audio as well. I feel like I had such a good experience with Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary on audiobook. And the vibes I was getting from like Audible, like suggesting it, was that like this is kind of similar in that like at least the the narration will seem similar, that it's first person, talking about that sort of thing. And so I enjoyed it that way too, and it helped because like when I was able to really focus, I can just throw it up to like 1.5 and just breeze through.
I was going to ask you about speed. I did this one 1.3, 1.35 ish.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I took it all the way up to 1.5.
Wow.
No, but
impressive.
there was like some lulls at points of the book too, where I noticed, I don't know, this isn't like a spoiler, but did you guys notice that like every chapter, I feel like sometimes, even like the last chapter, he'll like have to tell you what it looks like outside? For just like, it's weird. It's like pacing wise, it's just weird to be like,
what's description?
Sure, but like
resetting every chapter.
But yeah, it's like you're like, oh man, outside looks purple today, and I'm like, it's like it was very jarring for me.
Okay.
So I think by going faster, it helped me just like, all right, Mickey, my man, like, let's get back to it, my guy. And but no, I would recommend these. There's certain ones that I would not recommend like on audio, but no, I think sci-fi is a good one for it because unless they're just like using some sort of language that like makes no sense. Like sometimes when sci-fi goes like crazy and like has to rename like verbs that like you don't have to rename, but they do it anyway, or like nouns that they're just like everybody's called a feather, and you're like, why are they called a feather? And they're like, don't worry about it. It's like, okay, it's like I can't do that. But as long as it's using like most of that stuff, audio's I think the way to go.
I think you mentioning that is interesting because like I didn't listen to this at all. I just read it, but then I kind of read and listened to a different sci-fi book called To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and that was a bigger like 30-hour kind of journey. And just comparing that to this kind of like really kind of brisk, just like light book, where it's just like, I finished it. I really enjoyed it. It was really fun. I want more. Yeah. I thought was just like in and of itself good instead of being like, because I did want more and I wanted to expand on it, but for what it was, I was, kind of enjoying not having to really dive deep into like the lore of everything and just doing all this stuff. It was like, okay, I read that and I liked it.
No, that's true. It is. I feel like if anything, at its best, it's just a good like escape. Like, it's still entertaining. Like, and it is. I agree. It's quick. I think even the audiobook was maybe 10 hours.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Tops, I think.
10, 12.
Yeah, or maybe 12.
Yeah.
When you're at 1.5, it technically
it is 10.
It's like 8 hours.
But I think like both of you said, it was an easy sci-fi. It didn't get super complex.
Yeah, I was never lost or anything. Yeah. No, that's true. Which I think is sometimes like a good thing. Like, I don't think you have to make people feel dumb in a sci-fi book, Yeah. And some of these like intelligent, like, I think the author, Edward Ashton.
Yeah, something like that.
He's like legit like a scientist in real life.
Yeah.
And he just like on the side wrote this book.
Sick.
So it's like, hey, cool. So when you do that, that's kind of neat because when he does get into the descriptive, like, here's what antimatter is, and then like pops off for a little bit. It's like, I didn't need that, but it's cool that you can like do that. You know? And like, I don't have to like question whether like what you're saying is real because you've decided to take half of the chapter to tell me what it is. So I assume you're right, Hopefully that's not dangerous thinking, but that's what I went with because he was just like, whoa, that's very descriptive of like what antimatter is.
I don't think it's going to matter for you.
No, I don't think it's going to matter for you, but it's just like, whoa, okay, got it. Plot purposes, I guess. We need to know what antimatter is or whatever. So, yeah, anyway.
Well, cool. I think there is before more spoilery, there is the kind of comparison to like Project Hail Mary and an Andy Weir, and it kind of, for me, felt like Andy Weir light. It was an impression. It was good. It wasn't, but it was just because we had Martian and we had Project Hail Mary before this that were just masterpieces in my mind. This was like, oh, cool. Here's like a fun attempt.
Sure.
And so I think if we didn't get those two, this would be a lot better in my opinion. But because we have those other two books, it felt like, oh, good try, trying to be the next Andy Weir.
Yeah, that might not be fair, but I completely agree. I think the last sci-fi I came off was Project Hail Mary, and that's one of the best I've ever read. So
yeah.
Let me get crazy for a second, though, and say this. The concept of Mickey 7 seems like a far more enjoyable film than Project Hail Mary does as a film.
I think that's fair.
So, like, even though I agree that Project Hail Mary is, like, a far better written film, or a better written book.
It's probably book
reading
4.
it, I'm like, I don't need to see this.
Yeah.
Like, there would be a lot of that book that would be, like, boring to watch, you know? But because you're in the head of him, it makes perfect sense to be a book. Mickey lives in a world in this concept. I want to see it. Yeah. And I can't see it a lot of the time because we're so caught up in what Mickey's doing that, like, I'm excited for the movie version of this. Yeah. I'm ready to visually see.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
So, well, yes and amen. Andy Weir, God rest him. Or, not God rest his soul. But
what happened to him?
Wait, hold on. No. God bless him. But I would say that Mickey 7, at least on the movie front, is more exciting for me. So,
I get that. Yeah.
Okay. Let's get into spoilers.
Let's do it.
Let's tear this book up.
Yeah, Mickey 7. You're gonna be in Mickey 2 when we get into
Here's
it.
what we're gonna do. We're just gonna tear it apart so we can rebuild it into something beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, just like life.
Do we want to start with likes? Do we want to start with dislikes? Do we want
Sure.
to start in the middle of the book? Who cares?
Both.
Here we are.
Any of it.
Okay.
What's something that like you guys really just like? I got to make sure this gets talked about. Let's do that.
Okay.
Is there something that just like, what did you love about it, or what did you absolutely hate about it, and then we'll go from there.
Brandon, do you have anything?
One thing that I really did like about it was the flashback chapters of how his prior iterations had died. And thinking about this today, I really liked how the idea of if he had not recently backed up, or if there wasn't a camera on him when he died or whatever, he didn't really know how the most recent version or iteration of himself had died. And major spoilers now, he just had to trust his friends to tell him what happened, and they're not always honest about that. And I think the mystery of, like, what is even happening to me is another great premise that could be done even better in the movie. In the book, it made perfect sense to kind of alternate chapters between what's going on in the present tense versus how he had died, and kind of flip-flopping back and forth. I'm not sure how well. I'm sure that what's the director's name?
Bong Joon-ho.
I'm sure he could do it well, no matter how he wants to do it. But
that pace would be kind of hard.
That pace could be weird. I don't know. I'm curious. They have to show some iterations of Robert Pattinson dying to kind of really lay out the concept of an expendable or whatever. But I don't know if it's going to be all chronological in the movie or if we'll jump back and forth. But I liked the flashbacks of him dying for the sake of the colony, doing these dangerous missions and finding out like all the painful, horrible ways that he died.
Oh, the radiation.
I would be, I don't know, I don't want to be like too bold, but I would say there's got to be like some hard, cold opening of this movie where we're just seeing. I think it would just be like, my name's Mickey. I'm Mickey 17. And then just a montage of like at least a few of like, this is what my life is like, you know, and then it's like Mickey 17 or whatever. Like, I feel like that's where it would go.
Kind of like a narration, like I'm an expendable.
This sets the world.
Yeah.
But one thing I agree with you, there are so many sci-fi stories that just go, Earth dried up 1,000 years ago. That's all the explanation there is, and now that's why we do what we do. And this book at least kept revisiting, like, why did he have to sign up for? Why? What did it look like for him to sign up? Why did the world need him to even do that? And it kept telling us why Earth just completely messed up.
Yeah. It gave
dope.
questions to answers
Yeah.
that like were coming up, and like, okay, here's a question. Oh, here's your answer. Okay, it wasn't like
that was like my biggest critique of like Avatar, like when we've talked about it, where it's just like, why are we searching at Pandora? Like, because we need
Unobtainium.
it. We need it, you know. And it's like, no, but like even just a scene explaining, here's what life is like here, and that's why even though this is really crappy up here, it's better than what this was. It gives me so much better context for like understanding. Oh, well, that makes sense, you know. And I think the whole, the idea of cloning people because we need crash test dummies to basically
die.
To think that we're going to like go to another planet and not experience something, you do need somebody to be like a test subject. I don't know how ethical like this is, but like I guess if you volunteer for it and you like literally give up your entire whatever, but I think that checked out. Like, I think that's what was so fascinating about it. It's like, yeah, how somebody would have to make these sacrifices. You just would hope that it's like, hey, but at least on the back end, you're like, there will be another one of you, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of, do you want to be like the first pioneers and be like, oh, you made it 2 feet. Thanks. We learned that we die immediately, you know?
Yeah.
That's cool, like, that we get that concept. And I think that's what was so interesting about it. So I agree that was really cool.
Would any of you sign up to be an expendable?
Absolutely not. No. When he talks about how gruesome, like radiation poisoning, and then another
torrents of blood.
Yeah, torrents of blood. But the answering the whys of like why do they need that? The good one explanation was when they got to the planet, they couldn't put robots out there to test for viruses and microbes and all those things.
Yeah.
So they just exposed him to the environment, and he just all his fluids are coming out of everywhere. Yeah, so
It's brutal.
it answers the why. Like, why would you need
Yeah.
a human to do
Yeah.
that? No, I would not be an expendable.
Oh yeah, and I was actually kind of slightly disappointed that his whole thing was just like a little tiny side plot of like, I'm kind of in debt, so I
Yeah.
think I'm okay dying a bunch. Like, it was
I
like,
didn't feel like it was the biggest motivator.
yeah,
That could
But-
be done better.
it was a
Yeah.
little nitpicky of me, but like I was just kind of like,
It was fine.
it was like,
yeah.
I guess this just gives me purpose, and I was like, this feels a little too just like convenient hero character subplot thrown into. I just am going to. I was like,
Yeah. I'm
I
of the
wouldn't
opinion.
mind.
I think Mickey kind of sucks.
Oh, he's horrible.
I kind of got similar vibes to Ready Player One's main character.
Oh
Of
no,
Mickey 7.
he's better. Ready Player One's better
Wade.
than this guy.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Mickey's
No, but like
kind of an idiot.
well,
Yeah.
okay, fair. But I just
Mickey's
think like
an idiot,
Wade,
and then-
Wade's kind of in the book a lot more of just like I don't know what's so redeemable about you except for
Oh.
you're just a massive nerd. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
He knows all the nerd.
And so I just felt like Mickey's, similar in that where I'm like, I'm not like cheering for you, but like,
Kinda.
but kind of. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
let's see where this goes. You know?
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of, I don't know why I put two and two. I just think kind of like the snarky, like,
Yeah, sure.
know, like the classic, like, hey, is there anything else that you need from me? And he goes, yeah. And then he punches a guy in the face. And then he's like, that's what I needed to do.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
that was
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, because
a
like
lot.
for like, I guess to compare it to Martian and Andy Weir, it's like I was rooting for those guys,
Yeah.
and
sure.
like for sure, like I want them to survive.
Yeah.
But Mickey's like, huh. I think Mickey more brought questions like, oh, how do you and 8 differ? Like that's
Yeah.
interesting, and that's when they kind of like where the questions of that start being
Mhm.
cool to me. But like Mickey himself is like he like the reason he got into this situation is because he bet against his friend and he lost, and then he
Yeah, it
kept
was
betting
so
against
rough.
his friend.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's weird.
and then he's mad at his friend.
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, the friend ultimately ends up being like kind of like, oh, he leaves you for dead.
yeah.
Got it. He sucks too. But like
Mhm.
both just
beforehand,
suck.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like you bet against him
Mm.
and you kept doing it. Like,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Like, there's never a part where I'm just like, oh, Mickey, man, like, I wish I feel for you. But every
Mhm.
time I'm just like, oh, no. Anyway, like, that's kind of how I just feel like throughout the whole,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know. Mickey is just not that fine, you know?
Mickey, not so fine. Anyway, sorry. I go back to positives.
Sorry.
I do like the flashbacks. I do
Agreed.
like him. His like kind of infatuation with finding out what happens to the other colonies and stuff. That was cool, and to hear about that.
Mhm.
That's like very creative
Yeah.
and very much like, okay, well, on this planet they had this happen, and like all this like different other terrible things and positive, like how did it work, how did it didn't. I thought that was really cool. I liked the going back and forth between present and past,
Mhm.
and like kind of having these like converging storylines like that. So that was really fun, and I liked how it was written, and I liked the flashbacks and everything. I just don't know, like, yeah, character wise, I wasn't like, these are my favorite characters, and I love the dynamics of them, and I
Yeah.
love how they develop over
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I feel like for how much time we didn't spend outside of the colony, how much we still don't really care too much about the characters that are in
Mhm.
the colony. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, man, there's aliens out there. That's pretty cool. Sci-fi stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's barely any of those. Here's your 5 main characters. And there's really not a whole lot of development with many of them. It just felt weird. It's
Mhm.
like, I feel like I was trapped here, stuck with these characters, but I didn't really get to like fall in love with any of them. And then maybe that's not the whole point, is maybe you're not supposed to like love any of them.
No,
but I
probably
just-
not.
I mean, everyone's kind of looking out for themselves, and I guess the question at the end is, what does it look like when you're looking out for yourself if there's 2 of yourselves?
Mm.
Do you look out for the one who is newer than you, or do you look out for the one who is you? I don't know. That's an interesting question, but I feel like they didn't really even like
Mm-hmm.
try to answer it. You know, Mickey 8 just dies off screen. Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, that
oh,
kind of
yeah,
wrapped up
he's
nicely.
dead. I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
we spent this whole time. Like, there's just little things where it's just like, oh man, like we totally could have. They could have. I mean, even with how much Mickey with Mickey stuff that we could have talked about.
Yeah.
of like what makes you different as 8, and there isn't any. It's just that he's hungrier than the other one because he got out of the tank.
Yeah, I do think
that was a lot of the book.
yeah, the conversation's there, but like you do see like in the kind of romantic subplots, you do see them differ. Like the Mickey 7 has the girlfriend, but then like when he comes back and 8 comes around, it's like they stick together, and then he starts like kind of having feelings for this other girl, and like that's where it is interesting to be like, you are exactly the same person, except for this other one has been living like 4 or 5 months longer than you, and that experience changed him.
Yeah.
And so like I thought the book was a lot of experiences change as a person, and like who are you, who really, if like you're a culmination of your experiences. Whoa. Ultimately, that's how I took the book.
Or are you?
Maybe, I don't know. Stick me in some goo. I don't know. And so like, yeah, that's where I thought it was interesting, and like the whole like ship Theseus thing.
Sure.
And like, oh, which one has a soul? I don't know. Do they both have a soul? That's interesting. Like, like that's where it is, and they're just like, up to your interpretation. Do whatever you want with this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone had any thoughts on that.
Yeah. I was gonna bring up the ship of Theseus thing. That was a must, and they did it. I'm glad they brought it up. Of like, is Mickey 7 really Mickey? Is Mickey 8 really Mickey? Or either of them? And hopefully they explore that better. The part that I was disappointed in was, like you said, Michael, at the very beginning, when part of like the conflict, the problem that arrives at the very beginning of the book is that there are 2 of them, and that's not supposed to happen. Mickey 7, they thought he was dead. He wasn't. So they make Mickey 8, and then we go a lot of the main chunk of the book where 8 is barely there, and they don't interact all that much. It's mostly about 7, and I was really wanting more of the struggle of them together, I guess. And I get they're trying to avoid each other so they don't get caught both existing, but there wasn't a whole lot of interaction. So I'm hoping there's a little more interaction between themselves. If I said that right?
Themselves.
Yeah. No, I think that would totally be.
Yeah. I wanted that. And it was like 3 days. It was like, I mean, it's a small colony. Yeah, you couldn't keep that a secret. But it was like, it did feel like, oh man, that's what hooked me into the book. And that was like 10% of what we were really getting.
Yeah. Again, I think it was just, there was like an expectation from what was told to us, like what to expect a little bit. And so I think that's our faults. But
I don't think that negatively affected my reading of the book. Like I still enjoyed it. I was still like, this is a really fun, good book. And if it's unpredictable,
that's cool, you know? Which I think like, I totally wouldn't have predicted it to go the way that it did. But yeah, just the idea, I think like with cloning and stuff, I was thinking, man, there's going to be like 50 of them. It's going to get wild. Like I thought that was what, because that's what they kind of allude to with one of the colonies. One madman
guy
was
just
basically
keeps
like
printing himself.
Let's just do this. Like I'm just 100 of me. Let's go. You know. So maybe this movie will be able to kind of like visually talk through that. Like maybe in that cold open we get to see like, this is why it was bad. You know, look at this guy, and it's just like 100 guys like crazy. And this is why they've kind of fine-tuned it. But honestly, the teaser trailer, this doesn't like spoil anything. It just shows him like in like it almost looks like an MRI. It just has him like eyes closed laying in an MRI bed, and it like spins, and then when it gets close to his face, his eyes open. But he doesn't look like sad or mad. He just looks like
I'm here.
Like I'm up to something, dude. So like I'm like ready for like what if one of them decides, like what if we get kind of like I'm trying to think of like you guys have both seen Loki, right?
Yeah.
If we get some Loki spoilers here from the MCU, but like Kang the Conqueror and like all of his versions, what if there's just like one nasty one that's just like, what if I just kill all of the Mickeys, or just like I'm really curious on like what you could do with like one that's finally just like fed up or something.
And that kind of was what was happening with Mickey 7. He was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna get back at like the boss who's always been a jerk to me, and like we're interfering with these creepers, or no one's really liked me on this trip.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a plot line there, but maybe if they lean into it, where it's like,
What if they go full blown?
Yeah.
It's like, we have a rogue Mickey who's just like, what are you gonna do
Chaos.
to me? Like, you can create another one of me, but what if that's like the liability? Like, what if he's ready to go crazy too, or you know, or that clone's like, you know, all in on like being a part of the mission, but this one's kind of like freed himself or something. I don't know. You could go all sorts of That's why I think this is just a fascinating like playground. I think I was just kind of let down by what area of the playground we went to.
Yeah.
So I just thought of a question for both of you, because in the book, the aliens, which we have hardly talked about at all, they're really not
Creepers.
Yeah. They're really not in it all that much.
Right.
They kind of lead you to believe they're going to be a major part of the plot, and they're involved, but I don't know, a quarter of the book maybe, and we've hardly talked about them in our podcast at all so far. So would you two be okay if they don't even have the aliens in the movie, and they just fully explore more of like the clone side of the story?
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed. I mean, I think if you're going to deliberately put him on a space station, I would say there's got to be something there. I don't even know if you have to go full-blown like what they did in the book, though. I don't know if you have to have like sentient, like these things that are just kind of like, we're just going to like kill a few of you just to like dissect you and then we're good, right? Like that was kind of weird. It was like almost like we don't mean you any harm. It's just we killed like 10 of your people, but you can kill like some of ours and we're all good. You know, like that was kind of a weird thing, but I could see that as like a horror element or something. Like just do the spooky, like, hey, it's dangerous out there, and that's how he goes. But I don't know if it's like the crux of what would make this story like good from, or like keeping it from being amazing.
Sure.
Is how I would say it, probably.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily what I was interested in the most. I would be like, if we did have a movie, I would kind of want this contained, like, what does it look like to have a second version of yourself, and trying to keep that a secret, but then like having you guys split off and become different people, and what does that look like? And I guess this idea with the creepers for me isn't fully thought out. Of it's probably another like another like example of what sentience looks like. Like in this case, like the creepers are like, what is their value of their life? Because we come into their planet and then we like try and take it over, and we're trying to like work out how that is like a sentient life form. But then they're like only one life form. They're like just like a queen, and they have like all these other little minions. And so like it's probably some kind of comparison of like, oh, well, if you just made a bunch of Mickeys, that's only one life form, right? And then if you killed like 100 Mickeys, that's just killing like no one. And so it's probably some kind of comparison there. And was the point I think that he was trying to make, and also kind of like some kind of colonization opinion, because it's like, oh, we came onto their planet and we're just gonna destroy it. And so I think ultimately some of the movie would probably hinge on like that as some kind of MacGuffin to kind of like move it forward. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not super attached to it.
Here's my crazy pitch.
Okay.
So let's say this is like 100 years after they've been sending ships out to places. Like Mickey is like, you know, way down the line of they've been sending people to places, they failed, whatever, but now we're finally seeing like a semi-successful one. What if the aliens are 100 years of evolution of someone cloning themselves on that planet, and they're just freaking like decrepit, cloned human beings?
Be sick. Be sick. I'm in it.
Calling it right now.
Yeah,
Shoot
should be
my
good.
shot.
Yeah.
March 2024. You'll see. You'll all see. They're very humanoid, but kind of got claws.
Yeah. Well, thanks
Look
for
like-
striking down this episode, because we just gave away the twist to Mickey 17. Thank you,
Well,
Nick.
maybe. My insider's source says it's good. I'm just kidding.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there has to probably be aliens in it. That
Yeah.
overall answer your question. I mean, it's just like, there's not too many sci-fi things that I can think of where you gotta at least like dabble.
Yeah.
You know,
If you're on a different planet, throw some aliens in there.
Yeah.
you got your like Blade Runners and stuff where it's like human stuff, but there's not
robots.
but robots. You know, Trying to think of like Annihilation was kind of that's still kind of alien-y, but
Yeah.
like it was, I don't know. There's you can do it, but there's got to be some weird like otherworldly, I think, presence.
Yeah, like Moon or like 2001. That's all, but that's also
I'm trying to think of
robots.
Maybe like worms, sandworms.
They're all aliens.
It's true. So we got Darcy this thing. We call it Tube City. It's this. It's like that retractable, like springy, but it's like a tube that she can crawl through. I'm thinking if I can figure out a way to get her to dress up as Shai Hulud and like make it like literally a dune worm.
That would be great.
I think we can make it work.
Yeah.
And I can she can just walk around and just like, and I can have my like handmade still suit on or whatever. That I haven't made it yet, but I'm going.
Oh, it's just hanging up behind you. Right?
No.
You must walk as the Fremen too. You're just walking around Darcy like.
I'll send out thumpers and she'll start crawling. It'd be so cool, dude. Be amazing. What would you guys like to see different? I feel like I've been saying some things that like, hey, in the movie it would be cool if they did this maybe instead. So you've said a lot of things that you're like, ooh, they did this. I hope they just do it better. What are some things that maybe weren't in the book that you hope that they could do in the movie? Like what can the theater do for this story that a book couldn't? Dare we say?
Mm-hmm. I think more just like the psyche of Mickey 7. I think just like I just picture a lot of Robert Pattinson sitting in his room looking sad,
brooding.
Like I'm just like, oh,
it's
I'm
just
so
Batman
there.
in space.
Oh, I'm so So I'm just like, I think just getting into like what has this man become because 100%. Of all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so like, it has to be a character piece for me. And this felt like it's a dark comedy, the book, but it didn't feel like, here's a person that is developing. This is just like, here's a guy who's making the decisions because he just kind of hates people. This is like where I think the movie could take it in a direction where here's a complex idea of a person.
Sure.
That's what I want to see.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well said.
I don't know if I have a great answer on what the cinema can do differently right off the bat. I'll have to think about that one. But I think one thing I hope they do differently story-wise is the book also felt like it was going, and then it needed to end, so he just wrapped a ribbon on it, and the ending was just kind of like, and we're done. Mm-hmm. And it was just like a quick, happy resolution for Mickey. Mm-hmm. I don't think the movie needs to do that at all. Mm-hmm. I think even if it ends with just the struggle of him not really knowing the answers to the question of like, am I Mickey? Am I real? Am I who I was born as? Am I a real person? What makes me me? Like just struggling with all those identity questions, even through to the end. I think it could still be an awesome story.
Yeah,
sure.
I would definitely echo that because it felt like none of that got tackled at the end. It's like, we are not fighting with the creepers, and I have a bomb. Cool. See you in the next one. It's like, it didn't feel like, oh, who am I as a person? It was like, oh, Mickey 8's dead, so now I'm Mickey 7. I'm the only Mickey around. And so, problem solved. And so there wasn't any like conclusion in that respect.
Especially for the beginning of the book, having people overlook a death. Mm-hmm. It kind of felt like when it happened off screen, I'm sitting there going like, when's Mickey 8 just going to show back up and be like, I never died. It's like the whole book was based off of the exact same thing happening. So how are we so sure that
maybe that's
8's not?
Maybe that's the point, dude. Maybe that's just the point. We just overlook everything. We just overlook people's lives.
That's insane. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just saying. I agree with you. Like at one point I was like, I do want this book to end, and it did. But I was like, shoot, we spent so much time in that middle section that I feel like we weren't ready for an end somehow. Mm-hmm. It was weird.
Yeah.
I was like, I kind of am ready for this to be done, but it shouldn't have been done the way it was, I think. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what I would like other things cinema could do. I agree with you, Michael. I think in some ways, like, yes, I think you can get into the psyche of the character. I do think having like a first-person narration is also an easy way to do that. So I do wonder if cinema can do it better. I'd be interested to see what your theory is.
Yeah, like a Blade Runner kind of thing, where it's like
maybe there even is some narration. Like you could maybe still have like
Like
him
just do
talking
like
to
a
us.
video log or whatever, and just be
Mhm.
like, oh, here's this, and then like it's playing while he's
Yeah.
doing the activity.
Not to compare it completely to Batman, but I mean, like, that was kind of, he, like, journaled,
Ideas
and we
and
basically
nice.
read his
Yeah.
journal throughout
Mhm.
it. Like, he told us what he was journaling,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that is a way you can do it, where it's, like, still kind of honoring to, like, the source material, but allowing us even further into that psyche, because, yeah, that would be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I think if they did a scene where he was watching one of his own deaths, because they talked, I think he did that. He watched a few of them to understand what happened.
Yeah.
And to see him see that, I think could be really cool.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be spooky.
Yeah. I just see a lot of reaction from Pattinson, but not necessarily
Yeah.
like, maybe not visually reaction, but like just the camera's just on him as he's like just staring at a screen, just like taking it all in. And I think he does that very well. I mean, like, hey, you're a Twilight guy, right? So
Amen.
it's just like he does a lot of silent acting well, and
Yeah.
a lot of just like staring, and you can kind of like read emotions off of him. And so like he does that well, and so I can just picture him doing it through this movie.
I mean, again, the Batman. He's wearing a mask, and I still can read emotion off of him. Dude's insane. He only has his eyeballs to work with, and you're still just like, I think he's sad. Now, granted, it's pretty safe to assume that Batman's sad, but Rob Pattinson acts it very well. You've obviously seen the Batman, right, Brandon?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I was like, hope I'm not spoiling
No,
anything.
I
Batman is
Yo,
sad. Big
Batman's
sad.
in the Batman. Big sad in the Batman.
Batman is
Don't
big
tell me
sad.
his parents have died.
And now we get the Penguin HBO show soon
Mm-hmm.
with our boy Colin Farrell, which I'm not that interested in, but probably gonna watch
I want to watch it.
because Colin Farrell's the man.
I think it sounds dope.
I've never liked the Penguin, but
Yeah, but Colin
take it
Farrell.
easy this sweetheart. He's amazing. He's amazing. So we'll have to watch it.
Yeah.
But I think that just shows you like how excited we are with like the track record of the director, the track record of Rob Pattinson. I think it's just like, even though we might be lukewarm on this book, I think I'm very excited to see how. I'm curious, like a year from now when we finally watch this, if we're like, boy, we were dead wrong again. Like I would be very surprised if we come back and be like, Nick shouldn't have even led us to this book because the book was like meh. And then the movie was also crappy, and then it's like, wow, I'm so sorry, guys.
I think the movie will be better than the book.
100%.
I agree.
But I would also like to hear your ratings of the book.
Yes.
Because I think mine's higher than your guys's.
Nah. Yeah, you're right. For sure you are.
Okay.
I'll go last.
I'm giving it like a 7.5. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun read.
Very nice.
I would probably read it again, and it was just quick, easy, breezy, and like, and we can talk about this after too. Like, I am interested in something more. It leaves it pretty open, and I would like to see a second one. I don't know what you would do, but I would like to see a second one.
Fair enough.
And I think there is a second one confirmed.
Probably.
Yeah. So, I would like to read it.
You're gonna stick with it?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I like it enough to. I think it's easy to read, and I think that's the key thing for me.
That's
It's
fair.
like
We do need those.
I would read a second one, and very quickly, and I would read it like in a heartbeat. Really, like
Fair
I
enough.
enjoyed it enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Was that?
All right, Brandon. Are you lower than a 7.5?
I am lower than a 7.5.
Okay, same.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Where are you at?
Yeah. I am gonna give it a 6, which like it was a decent to good book. Not great by any means. There was the premise was just so much better than the execution of the story. I don't think I would read a second book, mostly just because I've done a lot of reading this year, and there are so many good books. Like there is no shortage of 8, 9, 10 quality books.
Sure.
Yeah, so 6. I recommend books to a buddy of mine that we pass recommendations back and forth to read, and I rarely, if ever, do this, but I rescinded my recommendation for this book to him. I told him, hey, add this to your list, and then like 2/3 of the way through this book, I was like, actually,
Retracted.
maybe
Wow.
not.
Because like just the execution of it.
Yeah, the execution of it. I just felt like it was an incredible premise, and there are certain things that the author did phenomenally well as far as his creativity and the ideas.
Sure.
But then the execution of the story, it just missed.
Fair enough. So you came down 1.5 points, and
Are you
I
gonna
already
go-
had this in my head.
Oh
but
my
I'm coming
God.
down another 1.5.
It's that
this is
low?
A 4.5 for me.
Whoa.
100%.
Wow, this is
Yeah.
more than I thought. Okay.
Hey, but it's my fault, okay? Don't feel bad. Like you're gonna somehow sympathetically think that this is your fault.
it's a
and I was
four
the
in my
one-
opinion now.
Yeah, no. I just felt like, again, maybe I'm just harping on just feeling betrayed, but like the pitch for me, like not being ending up like being all that important, just was hard. It's like, why Mickey 7? No reason. There's no reason.
What do you mean why Mickey 7? Like why?
Well, it's just the title of the book should explain like what is it important that it's the 7th one?
Sure.
Not really.
Yeah, okay.
It like he died a few times,
Mhm,
but like
mhm.
this could be Mickey 1 and it wouldn't matter. Like he could have not died before this. There was just like no like importance to him being an expendable except for being a plot gimmick,
Mm.
And I think they could have just done so much more with it than it just being like, this guy's an expendable, but like, okay, well, if that's true and he can always come back, where's the tension?
Mhm.
Well, there's another one. It's like, well, they both can still die and they both can come back. Where's the tension? Well, there's women involved now. I'm like, okay, but I'm still like, where
the
am I
point,
going?
I think the point
You know?
is that like if Mickey 7 dies, that version of Mickey 7 dies.
Sure, yeah.
Like that's not him coming back. That's him dying.
Yeah. I just felt like it was, they still couldn't even answer the question of like, am I still really dying or am I, it's almost like The Prestige where it's
Mhm.
like, man, I'm spoiling so many movies tonight. I'm so sorry. The Prestige. Okay, spoilers for The Prestige. But like every time Hugh Jackman does the trick, is it him that gets to live or is it him who gets to die? That was still like cool,
Mhm.
but it wasn't explored in this book for me to be like, wait, was it you that dies or
Right.
was it like,
Sure.
why does that matter? Because you decided to do this. Why should I care?
Mhm.
And I just felt like it didn't like, oh man, I feel like it could have just done so much more. And so
Yes.
I'm more rating it at the book that I thought it could be,
Mhm.
not at the book that it was.
I think being a 300-page book, I don't think it's diving into that so much. If it's
Yeah.
a 30-hour book, yeah, awesome. And
Sure.
maybe that's something that would go into a sequel.
Mhm.
And so I get that, but
Yeah.
for me, it tackled enough the interest to be
Sure.
like, oh, I liked it. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'd like to have more of that, and I would like to read a sequel. And I
Mhm.
looked it up. It's called Antimatter Blues. Dope
Perfect.
name.
Perfect.
And it comes out in March.
Oh, yeah,
So,
wonderful.
I'll
Okay.
read it and I'll let you guys
You
know.
read it, let me
Yeah.
know, and then
And-
I'll dock 3 points from it, and then I'll know if it's good or not.
If you enjoy it, I will read it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, communally, like, I love you enough to read a book.
And
That
dock 3
might
points.
sucks.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Just remember, this is your fault.
Yeah,
No,
this was this was your recommendation.
But what if
You
we end up
recommended this to me and you didn't even like it.
time out? What if this ends up being a masterpiece in cinema, though?
I think it will be. I think
So,
it will be a
boom.
good movie.
So that's why I'm saying, like, there's still good stuff here. What does our podcast do? We see cinema a little differently.
Yeah.
Maybe we saw this one before cinema was even created.
Whoa.
The cinema of Mickey.
I was gonna
17
say before
was
like
created.
cinema won't exist
not
until
like-
Mickey
we're
7
not-
exists.
Yeah. But
Well, we're usually united on our book or our movie reviews,
meh.
but on our book reviews, I guess we're not very united.
No, we're not. No, not this time. But
I didn't know you were so low on it.
I just felt
A
like
6, I get a 6. That's a reasonable opinion. Nick, I don't know what you're doing.
Listen, just throw me into the what is
The
it?
goo bat.
The
Oh yeah, the
The
Big
death
centrifuge.
corpse hole.
the corpse hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, just throw me. I guess just you'll like the other iteration of me. He'll like this book a lot more. No, I'm sorry. I just when you compare everything to Dune. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
I think there was the whole like Hail Mary of it all.
Mm.
That it's like, oh man, if I just wouldn't have read that book before this, maybe I would have liked it a little bit more. And just seeing other versions of this type of story played out, I've just seen the whole like copies of myself played out in a much more interesting way that this just I didn't think did something that was so unique that it set itself apart.
Sure, that's fair.
And I think it could have done something crazy to set itself. Like, I think
Mhm.
this movie will do something crazy to set itself apart. So I'm excited still. This will not turn the flame off. I'm still flame on very much. Mickey 17.
Mickey 17.
Flame on for sure. So, anyway.
Cool.
Are there any other
yeah.
closing thoughts on?
I think I'm going down to a 7. Anyways.
You're insane, dude. Just stay where you're at. No, you wait. Yeah, 7.5. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of like in the grand scheme of time, I'm like, whoa, Mickey 7. 7 sounds good. Mickey
No,
7.
no,
7 on,
you stay at
7 on
7.5.
7 on Mickey 7.
I'm not going to let you come down because I said it was
7.
4.5.
No.
You're
7
insane.
on Mickey 7.
You're literally defending your 7.5 this entire time, and then you go, you're right, it's a 7. You're insane.
I didn't bring it down to a 4.
Stay with it. Stay with it. I'm not going to
7 on Mickey 7. That's my final opinion.
Okay, fine.
Whatever.
Whatever.
I have no more.
But hey, I'm excited for a little over a year from now.
I'm excited for you to be
We'll get
wrong.
back in these
Yeah.
leather seats, and we're going to be like, boy, Nick, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention 2 years ago.
I gotta go watch that teaser.
Yeah. I
Is
mean,
it-
it's
is it just-
literally
yeah.
just one scene, and it's literally just a teaser that says Mickey 17 with him. But I mean, it just showed that, like, hey, it's been filmed, because it filmed from August to December of last year.
It's ready.
So,
We'll release it. Let's read it. Let's go.
but hey, we got Mark Ruffalo, we got Stephen Ewan.
Marky Ruff. Okay.
Ewan?
Stephen
Wayne
Yeun?
from,
Yeah, Stephen Yeun.
yeah, from Walking Dead.
Mhm.
Toni Collette. She doesn't play Nasha. She plays
Cass
some
or something?
Cat.
maybe.
Cat, yeah.
But Mark Ruffalo is going to play the general,
Yeah, the guy.
and then
Jerk.
Steve is going to play
His friend.
Berto.
Nice. Cool.
So I'm in. It's going to
Yeah.
be a great cast.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited.
Me too.
I don't know how many reviews you've read of Mickey 7. I don't even know how long it's been out. It's been out for like a year, maybe.
Yeah, it was this year. Or I guess last year.
2022.
Yeah.
But this may or may not be our first book review.
Probably is.
You know what? Leave a comment down below if
Yeah.
we've totally reviewed a book. I feel like
I
we
don't think
have for
we
some
have
reason.
not. I don't think we have.
We talked about a book, didn't
We've
we?
talked about a book, but it's not been the major thing of our podcast.
I feel like we talked about a book.
I'm gonna look. Don't
I'm
hold
trying
up.
to think of what
I don't
we
think so.
talked about. There had to have been something we talked about.
No. I'm gonna
Yeah.
say no. I'm just gonna say no, and then if I'm wrong, then I'll blame Nick.
Okay, fair enough. What if it was like Brandon's last episode? Where it was a
No,
book?
that was Top Gun Maverick.
I'm like really worried.
We talked about doing a Project Hail Mary.
Maybe that's
podcast,
what it
but
was.
We didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what it was. It was in the pipe, but
Mm-hmm.
man, how bad do you feel that we
books.
did Mickey 7 book review and didn't do Hail Mary?
Yeah, I mean, I could have been sitting here just praising that book the whole time, but
Yeah, it is hard, especially like because of how similar it's written. It's hard not to just be like compare them, but it's not fair, I guess. To
Yeah.
I agree with what you said earlier, though. I think this is going to be a better movie than Project Hail Mary could be.
Yeah. I think Martian was the most movie-esque they could have done, where you still have enough happening. Like Andy Weir, like that story I think makes sense to be a movie. I don't know if Project Hail Mary would have. I mean, there's some stuff that could be interesting, but that would ultimately be like, it'd have to almost be like an Oscar picture where it's like every scene's going to have two people talking to themselves, like, and it's going to just be very intimate and very like close, and there's nothing interesting happening except for dialogue. It's just dialogue heavy completely. So I think for this one, it'll make a lot more sense to make it to the screen. So did you look through?
We have not reviewed a book.
Hey, we did it.
We've talked about like, oh, here's like what we've been doing, but it's not been like, here's
That's
the only
right.
book.
I think we did like,
We did like a fall watch.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so it's like, hey, we talked about books on the
Gosh,
podcast, but
we
we
were
haven't
so-
talked about this book. Or like, here's a book we're talking about.
we were young
Um,
lads back then. Some of us weren't even married.
Yeah. Some of us weren't even married.
Wow. Time flies.
Yeah.
Some of us weren't even dads back then.
No, not that point.
Oh, really?
That was
I was
yeah.
still a dad?
Yeah.
Oh, sick. Okay, good. We've just been doing the podcast for so long.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, Brandon, thank you for always joining us. Your opinion is insane. It's awesome.
Thank you.
We appreciate
fun.
It's the Dune of this podcast.
it. Wow. But we appreciate you listening to us and being our friend.
Yeah.
Mostly being our friend.
I appreciate it too.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's cool if you listen to us too, but that's fine. But yeah, there's your review of Mickey 7. Man, 10 out of 10. All right, thanks for joining us. Not Us United.
Bye. You've just listened to Not Us United. You can find us under Not Us United on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Please leave us a review and consider subscribing to our podcast. You can reach out for future podcast topic suggestions at notusunitedpod@gmail.com.